Hi everyone. In this video we'll try to understand how to add data using the Excel editor which we have created. We'll also need to understand what are the requirements of entering data for catchments, for junctions, for outfalls. So let's go one by one. So in SWMM, being a freeware, uh, there is a little complication with respect to the data we want to add. So what you have to do is go to the SWMM manual and see these different units of measurements. This will inform you what sort of data is required and in what units. So for example, area of subcatchment needs to be added in hectares. Similarly, for other parameters, how in what units the data needs to be entered. For the subcatchment, uh, quite a few data points are required. The first is what is the area of catchment. This you can easily get if you're using ArcGIS or AutoCAD or any other software. The next is percentage impervious. What it means is how much is the total area, percentage of total area is impervious compared to the total area of catchment. Again, these two values are per subcatchment wise, so you need to get these values separately for all catchments. The third parameter is the width of the catchment. This is the total area of catchment divided by the representative length of the subcatchment. So this gives you what is the width of the runoff, width of the catchment. This is useful in the sense for calculating what would be the type of concentration and for the subcatchment, and therefore this is useful. The fourth parameter is the percentage slope. This also can be either taken as an assumption for the entire subcatchment, or you can, based on the kind of data you have, this can be taken as a weighted average of different representative areas. Here we have assumed a percentage slope. So these are some of the areas which some of the data which need to be entered for our catchment. So again, these are catchment wise, and let's see how this data we have to enter in the software. So this data table would be given to you. What you have to do is go to the toolbar. You will see an Excel editor here. So click on the Excel editor, what will happen once you click the Excel editor is your SWMM will go and you will be able to see this Excel. Because we had planned the Excel editor, or when we were configuring the Excel editor, we had written that the program should close. Once you close this Excel sheet, your program will get updated and then you will be able to run the program again for the updated data. So this is the first subcatchment data which you need to enter. So it says which which is a catchment, which is the junction outlet, and these are default areas in percentage impervious, width, percentage slope. So these four data, I'll go to the PowerPoint here and add this data. Again, you will have to be really consistent with the units. Please use only the units as prescribed by the SWMM. So this is the data which is pasted here. I don't need to be bothered about the format. So this is my data on area. Next up, let's understand what other data is required. So the other data required is N, or Manning's roughness coefficient for impervious area. We can take it as a weighted average of let's say a smooth asphalt road and concrete lining. So this is for impervious area. So depending on the area of roads and area of concrete lining, I can take this as a weighted average. So that is Manning's N for impervious area. Similarly, Manning's N for the pervious area. So depending on the area we have, you again will get some of these values from the SWMM manual. Here we are selecting the value of 0.13 for the Manning's N for the pervious area. The third parameter in the second table is the storage for impervious area. So this is depression storage. We will be choosing some of the values as given in the manual, SWMM manual. So this is again screenshot from the manual, and we are assuming a value of 1.27 mm or 0.05 inches. Always make sure the unit are consistent with of all your data are consistent, and therefore we are converting 0.05 inches to mm and using it here. The fourth data here is storage in pervious area. So this is the depression storage. We are using it for lawns, and we are using 0.1 inches, which is 2.54 mm for our data. And the last two values required for our catchments are percentage 0. So it means what percentage of the area does not have any depression storage. We are assuming it's 0 at present. So all our areas, be it impervious or pervious, have some depression storage. That is what we are assuming. And the last is root 2, which means what is happening in our area is the stormwater which falls on the terraces or on any other surfaces first is routed through the roads, and then it goes to the drainage network, and therefore we are saying it goes from the surfaces, different surfaces, to impervious areas like roads, and then it goes to the stormwater network. So that is route 2. So this is the data which I need to enter now. So I'll just quickly copy paste this data, and I'll go to our, so this again data will be given to you. So you just need to copy paste, and let's just check where this data has to be entered. So just the table below, this data you have to enter, and again you don't bother about the format, it will go automatically. And so these are for 7 catchments. The next data is infiltration, and let's see what we have for infiltration. So for infiltration, again some basic values are given in the SWMM manual. I'm assuming here a silty loam, and therefore as per the Green-Empt method for infiltration, you'll require suction and saturated hydraulic conductivity to measure the infiltration and initial moisture deficit. So we are assuming all these 3 values from the manual based on silty loam. So my K, or saturated hydraulic conductivity, is 0.26 inches per hour, and which I've converted to mm per hour. The second value I'm going to use is suction, which is given by this symbol here. So suction, if I see in my data, it is 6.69, which is 169.926 mm. So I'm using these 2 values. Again, you'll have to make sure what units you are using. And finally, for initial moisture deficit, we are using a value of 0.22, which again is a suggested value from the SWMM manual. So these are the 3 data points which I need to enter for the parameter values there. So I'll go back and check what my parameter values look like. So let me copy paste this first, and let's go to the Excel sheet. So these are the 3 parameter values. So I need to simply copy paste this and drag my data for all the catchment areas. So this has to be simply copy pasted for all the catchments. The next data set required is for junction. For junction, there are 2 important data, which is the elevation or the surface elevation, and the maximum depth of the pipeline, which is given by, which is basically the invert level or the depth from the invert level to the top surface. So that is the depth we are talking about here. So this data is, we have calculated using, because we had the data from of the network. This is the data which we are using from the network. So we'll simply copy paste this data for the junctions, and this is my maximum depth here. So maximum elevation and maximum depth is here. The next data, if you see, is for the outfall. For outfall, similarly, you will require only elevation data. So this is my elevation data. I'll simply copy paste the elevation data there. The next is, what is the conduit length, the roughness coefficient for the conduit, and the shape and the diameter. Germ 1 means the diameter. So let's go back and check this data. So this is the length. Length, because we have calculated using the geometry of the map. I'm not going to copy paste length, but I'm going to copy paste shape and 0.013, which is the Manning's coefficient. So this is just 0.013 here, and this is the roughness coefficient. And for the next so these are diameters in meter. So I just need to copy paste and put it here. So my diameter values are also added. So this is my data, which is now set, and now simply what I need to do is save the data from here. the save sign. Just make sure you save the data from this save sign and just close the table. And once you close, your SWMM will open again. So this is my SWMM now.